What's up, y'all? We out here with another episode of Go, the Mission. We're broadcasting from Berrien Springs, Cold, Michigan. I'm your host, Corey Johnson. Mission is my passion, and I'm thankful for another opportunity to educate, enlighten, and encourage those of you who are interested in missions. As you're tuning in, go ahead and like, subscribe, and share this with somebody. You can just search for Go the Mission on any podcast provider like Spotify, Apple, Google, many more. You can also find the show on YouTube. And I'd like to encourage you that as you're listening, if you have any questions or comments, go ahead and drop them down below or reach out through social media. And here's a quick word from our sponsor, Jesus Is. It's a new year, and there's a new opportunity to represent for Jesus in our world today. I always have fun with people's questions and their conversation whenever they see me wearing my Jesus Is gear. And at a time when people aren't really sure what to believe anymore, you can be an encouragement to others that Jesus is still worth believing in. Doesn't matter, t-shirts, hoodies, stickers, however you want to rep it, we got you. Check them out on Instagram. The account is at Where Jesus Is. Follow, share, and order your gear there. Get your merch, get your merch, get your merch. All right. My guest today is admittedly someone I do not know very well, but a fellow missionary. We met in Hawaii during orientation a few years ago. Still trying to figure out all the details of that. But at least from what I can tell, she seems to be one of those people who you'd probably say is a vibe. You know what I'm saying? So welcome to the pod, Rachel Barlow. What's up?
Hey, it's so nice to be here. I'm so excited to do this.
That's what I'm talking about. Glad we could get you from the game and get you in here to do this interview. I'm excited to hear it. I always I have to say this. Usually people that I talk to on this have been one that I've had some kind of prior experience or friendship or knowledge with.
hmm
So there's a little bit more context to those conversations because of that. This one, I got nothing. but but
Look
that's cool.
forward.
Yeah, I like the unexpected. I think this is going to be fun. So, I have to start with the very first question we always ask everybody out here, and that is, what does mission and service mean to you?
Um, I have wanted to do mission work since I was in eighth grade because I was at a summer camp. You know, they always have the pastors that come for that week that you're there. And this pastor was a missionary for 8 years, and he was talking about how much it changed his life, how incredible it was to, travel and also spread the word of God. And I was like, I want that. I want that forever. And
Hey.
so from then on, mean, it actually was an influence in me choosing Walla Walla because in eighth grade I was like, well, Walla Walla sends out at least like numbers wise sends out quite a few missionaries. So that was like a huge pull, and finally I got to signing up for it. I think that mission work can be very powerful when it's done with the right motivation, the right perspective, and I also think that traveling is an incredible aspect to it. But I mean, we could be missionaries right here, so it's not the biggest aspect to it. But that was definitely a huge pull for me as well, to
Mhm.
kind of leave the atmosphere that I'm used to.
Wow. So eighth grade, and you already have this kind of vision of what you want to do. You mentioned something. I am curious about several things, but one of them is Walla Walla. How how did you know that they were a school that sent out missionaries?
I
Like
think I had to look it up. I think I just like looked up the numbers and saw that. Yeah.
that's so interesting. I don't remember hearing about missions programs or anything when I was getting into university. Like that it was literally something that I only got into after graduating. It was like the last thing that I knew about
No,
university.
had a huge impact on my life. And I had heard of like, I know that like some of the people who would work at camp would be like, oh yeah, I went to, Africa for 10 months, or I went to an island for 10 months. And I was like, you could just do that?
Mm. Oh man, talk about adventure. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Now, when it comes to like how you see that and mission and service, what do you think, like how would you define that?
Had to define
Mission service, like what does it
service.
look like for you?
I think giving 100% of yourself, like for God to use you for other people and not expecting anything in return.
Mm.
'Cause I think, you know, the only difference between like I don't know, maybe a more altruistic outlook on things, doing things not like um with the thought of being successful or the thought of being well off because of what you're doing, but you're doing it 100% solely for the good of others, I think would be a way to describe mission service.
That's hard for people these days.
Yeah, it's all it's hard for us, yeah.
Out of
Everyone.
curiosity, what are you studying in school right now, or are you
I'm
done? I don't even know.
Oh no, so I'm a religion major. I have a minor in graphic design, but I am pre-occupational therapy.
Uh, I'm not
Yeah.
sure how I'm not sure how all those go together, but
They don't go together, but they do, like, they go well with me. Because if you meet me, you'll see that, like, I have a very strong outlet for each of those. They
Mhm,
all mean a lot to me.
mhm.
But realistically, it's very confusing, and it always kind of takes people aback that I'm doing so much. But
Oh no,
yeah.
that's cool. Like I I tell people all the time, if you're in school just doing something for a paycheck, it's not going to last. You better find what you like to do and just run with it. Doesn't matter how crazy it is or appears to everybody else. Man, so you had this influence of wanting to be a missionary from a very young age, going through high school, and what was the process like determining where you wanted to go, and how did that kind of happen?
Um, so for like in the future, long term, I have no idea how that's gonna work. But at least for YAP, Micronesia, I walked in to Brittany's office, who was the coordinator at the time, and I sat down and I was like, I want you to send me where they need me the most. And she sent me to YAP.
Hmm. Yeah.
And it couldn't be anywhere because I was a little bit late in the game. And so to get a visa was like super challenging. And
Mhm.
I was like, I don't know if I will even be able to get it in time. And so I was limited to the islands or
Gotcha.
to like task force. And so I was like, okay, between those, the ones that I can where I can go, just send me anywhere. And so she's like, okay, you are going to go to YAP. And then I chose fifth grade.
All right. So you had no idea or preference where you wanted to go. It was just send me out there.
Yeah, I did have preference for islands over task force,
Hmm, hmm.
but I think that was yeah. I it was when it came down to it, it was between Majuro and YAP for me, but Majuro was getting a lot of Walla Walla students, and so yeah,
Okay.
'cause those were like the two that were like, well, we need teachers, and then I, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. They they have a very small system there, right? I can't remember hearing of too many missionaries that have ever gone there. Only
no,
like
and
two or
it's
three.
yeah, it's well, we actually got I think we had 9
Oh wow.
people when I went, but I think one had to leave because they got sick or they had an injury. Um, but then another one came a few months in, but it was I was surprised because I had heard that, you know, only a few would go at a time. And then last time, like they all were sent home
Mm.
and they were like lacking teachers. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's crazy. And then 9 of us showed up.
That's awesome.
It's a very small school, but the island, I think if you look up how big it is, it's almost as big as Ponape. So
Hmm.
it's not a small island in comparison to the other like Micronesian or Marshall Islands, but it is like I think it's lower in population and it's the least westernized. So they
Ah.
have very strong roots to you know how it's always been, which was so amazing.
Oh, tell us a bit about that. Like, it sounds like the culture there, for me being in Palau, like, I love Palau, and it is admittedly very westernized, I guess you could say. They're still very rooted in religion, but there's a lot of commercialism and other imports and things going on there too. What was it like going from here to a place like that?
It was I had done some research, so I wasn't really surprised by anything because like they tell you because we have like intro to cross cultural mission work class, and so they like tell you, they warn you that it's going to be different. But you really can't set any expectations because they will always be different
That's true.
than what you really think it will be like. I think I don't know if I should say this on the podcast. I think this the most shocking thing for me was the women don't wear shirts oftentimes,
Yeah.
and so I'd look at it and be like, "Oh, sorry." Like I don't want to make it obvious that it shocks me, but I would like be like kind of turn away.
Yeah.
But I'm like, oh, I'm being respectful. They need their privacy, but they're like, can I help you with something? And I'm like, yeah, I'm good, thank you.
Oh man, that's deep. That's deep. I guess it's a Micronesian thing because I mean we didn't see it like that in Palau, but when we would go to the museums on the island, there were several pictures, and I'll admit it was a little unsettling
Yeah,
for me being in there, like not knowing where to look and where not to look, but trying to appreciate history at the same time. It was a
right.
little awkward. I
Ours was,
understand that. Yeah.
they're a very like quiet community, and it's very much like they won't, for them to be respectful is to be quiet, and like they will often not acknowledge you unless you acknowledge them first.
Hmm.
um just like in general, unless you're like really good friends, and obviously you'll be like, hey. But I remember there was one time where I was walking through the aisles, and there was a worker there who we were good friends with, and I didn't see her. But then later, like the other missionaries that we were shopping around with were, they were all together talking, and I came over and I was like, oh hi, like I didn't see you. She's like, I saw you, you didn't come say hi. And I was like, I'm sorry, I didn't see you. And it's like they like they won't like approach you very often. They want
Mm,
like, because it's respectful. And
mhm.
yeah, there were times where missionaries were like, because they were allowed on the beach, they were no longer or allowed to go to the beach. And every single beach on the island is privately owned. So you have to get permission from the local in order to, because it's their property. It's
Wow.
where their house is. And
Mm.
so you can't just kind of like meander. But there was one area where we could swim if we jumped off the restaurant. It was a boat. The restaurant was on a boat, and
Okay.
sometimes we would just jump off of it and swim around, which was allowed. It was okay.
All right. I, I mean that's cool. Like that.
Yeah, I
I,
always, except one of the missionaries got injured because they were supposed to jump at the same time, but one jumped and then one hesitated and then jumped. And
ooh.
the current pulled him right underneath him, and so he landed, and the guy broke his collarbone and had to go to Guam to get surgery. But
Mm.
then he got sick, had to go home.
Oh man,
Yeah.
that's crazy. Adventure. I knew I was gonna get surprised on this one, but I feel like we're only just beginning here. Oh man. So teaching fifth grade. Um, Fifth grade is a really cool age to teach. Did you have any previous experience or idea that you wanted to teach, or what was it like in that experience?
Do you mean previous experience teaching, or like did I have any idea what age group I wanted to work with
Yeah.
beforehand? Okay, so I wanted third grade, and then after talking to some missionaries, they're like, you might want a little bit older so they can have more like, concrete and abstract thinking. So I was like, okay, fourth grade. That's what I want. I want fourth grade. And so I sign up for it. We're good. Everyone's like, yeah, fourth grade teacher. And then I get there, and they're like, Yeah, so we have the third grade teacher already, but we don't have kindergarten, sixth grade, fifth grade, or and then high school. And they like, oh, and then they had first and second grade combined. And then they're like, okay, so we're like, okay, Rachel, you'll do sixth grade. And I was like, fourth grade. And then they were like, Leah, you're gonna do first and second grade. So and so, you're gonna do kindergarten and then fifth grade. And I was like, so I remember like saying like this, I'm not here to do what I want to do. I'm here to do what they need me to do.
Mm.
I was so sad though. I was like distraught. But I was like trying to hide it. And then we had another meeting and someone was like, well, actually, can we choose what we want to teach? And the principal was like, oh yeah, that's totally fine. And
Oh.
so all switched around because I wanted to do fifth grade, the kindergarten wanted to do sixth grade, and then the were like, we don't care what we do. So,
Oh man.
so that's how I got to the fifth grade. But I had wanted a little bit younger, but then like I mean, I love my students. They were incredible.
Oh man. What how easy or how difficult was it for you starting out teaching that class?
Oh, it was I was so nervous because I was like, I'm underqualified for this. I am a, junior in college. I should not be teaching. I should not be the one shaping these children's minds. I was like, I would like pray and I'm like, I'm unworthy to do this. I was so scared. I had spent so many days lesson planning and like figuring out the
Lesson plans.
textbooks and I was given the oldest class, one of the oldest classrooms, and so it was like leaking, the tile was like kind of undone and like it was very dirty, and so I spent a lot of days like cleaning it, and like that was actually good for me because I was so nervous, and so cleaning it up. And like the first couple weeks, those kids were so disciplined. And so something they'll always tell you in Hawaii, I'm sure you heard this over and over again and have said it. You start as a roaring lion and then you end as a gentle lamb. So I was like, I have to be very stern and strict. And I'm like, look at me, I could never. I was like, I'm so serious. I was like trying to like channel my inner actress in me because I'm the most bubbly person ever. And I was like, I am serious and you will listen to my rules. I am so strict. Don't. And so they were like very disciplined. I made sure like when we walk in a line, straight line, no talking until we get to our destination. And like they were so good. And so I was like, oh, I can be a gentle lamb. Like
Oh.
So I start kind of letting up. Like I'm like, okay, I'll be like less strict now. Like I scared them, so we're good. And as soon as I did that, it was absolute chaos. And I spent the rest of the year trying to calm it down.
Oh man.
It was so hard. Like one of the things about not being trained as a teacher is like I want to play with the kids just as badly as they want to play, but I have to be like, no, I'm the which was so hard.
Oh man, I hear you on that. I was so lucky. My first year I got to be the PE teacher. They had no curriculum or anything like that. So it was literally just play games all day.
Oh my
And there
gosh.
was a cross between the regular classroom teachers hating me and loving me because whenever I would come in, I would cause a ruckus. And it didn't matter if they were trying to get something done or if they needed a break. I didn't know, but it was fun for me. So
Classic teacher.
yeah, too
uh,
much fun.
our PE teacher he was amazing because on Fridays he would take my students for PE and I got to
Hey.
loved that.
No,
And then
that's what I'm talking
for
about.
elementary, none of the elementary teachers wanted to do PE, so sometimes I ended up doing it for all of them.
Wow.
But consistently, I did it for fifth and sixth, and I love that because since YAP has such a small, school, I only had 7 students, and the sixth grade teacher only had like 8 or 9 students, and so
Mhm.
combined we had teams, and it was great.
Ah, yes, yes, yes. How big is the school there? About how many students?
I don't remember, but it was each class maybe had like, I think the biggest class we had was 12 students, and that might have been a combined class. I can't remember.
Okay.
Small.
Man. Yep, you get there by the hopper, right? The plane.
The Yeah, but it doesn't go from island to island. Like I went from Guam, straight from Guam to Yap.
Oh,
Stayed in
okay.
Guam for a couple days and got to like hang out there, which was super cool.
Yeah.
Um, just straight to Yap.
Man, I remember I don't know why I was on that plane because usually we get to Palau straight from Guam also. It was
Oh,
like my
okay.
first time going there. We ended up on that. That was that was one of the most sketchy experiences of my life. But
Oh, I think ours was a regular plane. It didn't sketchy.
no, that's the move right there. That other way, oh man, you feel like you're just gonna go off into the ocean. Nah, it's not the move.
Oh,
It's not the move.
already scare me. So I can imagine how I would feel in that.
So bad. They got nets on the end of them too, just in case.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
I can't believe that.
Never again. Never again. So you have 10 months there with and 7 students is actually a really good number to really get to know your kids throughout a year. So
True.
I imagine you have several moments that you could call super rewarding. Give us some of those things that would qualify as that.
Okay. Yes, I got to know each one of my students extremely well, which is so, that was like that was the reason why I loved being a missionary. No other reason than I got to get to know those 7 kids. Um, but it also means that they are so comfortable with themselves because
Mm.
it's only been them 7 for the last, 5 years.
Oh, that's true.
And and so they know exactly what gets the other one to tick. They know exactly how to bully the other one to make them cry. They like get used to me very quickly.
Mhm.
And like I remember and it's so hard to get mad. Like sometimes I get mad, it would just be like I have to pretend they think I'm mad. So they're like, oh, teacher is mad. I need to go to my desk. But I'm in my head, I'm like, don't laugh, don't laugh, don't laugh. There were times I would always play music during reading time. Like they loved, just absolutely adored music. And it was so cool. They're all very talented, whether it's singing or even just drumming on their desk. I'm like, you're carrying a really good beat. Like you're very good though. Like, this is very surprising. And like I bring my ukulele and they take turns. They learn it like that. Like they were all so talented with music. So they loved it when I would play it during reading time.
Mm.
I remember I had started playing it, and Diedrich, who was my wild child, and Aiden, who was also the wild child, but he also was a sweetheart because he could tell when I was getting distressed and he would like calm the others down. Like they all looked up to him. He'd be like, guys, shh. So Diedrich and Aiden, while I put on the music for reading time, got up and started ballroom dancing in my classroom while I was also reading. And so
How do
I
they know
looked,
how to do this?
they're just like, it was um I would play piano music so that they could like feel relaxed while they're reading. And I look up and they're ballroom dancing. And I'm like, wait, what?
Wow.
That is a memory I will always cherish because it's cute. And I did laugh. I couldn't get mad, but I was like, giggle, giggle. Okay, go to your seat. Um, I had a student who had like um, extreme learning disabilities, and it was kind of to the point where he could understand commands like copy this or get your shoes or put this in your backpack or bring this home. That he understood exactly what that meant. But if I wrote something on the board and I said copy that, and then I told him, okay, what does that mean? He wouldn't understand that question. He was very concrete in what he could understand and never like abstract in it. So if I said, can you write me a sentence about your day? He wouldn't be able to do that. But if I said, copy the sentence from the board, he could do that. He had the best handwriting in class, but it was it was very hard because his comprehensive levels were extremely low. And so it would be, I would teach um, whatever I needed to teach, and then I would have them work on it. Then I'd go to his desk and I'd sit with him and work with every single problem with him. But then it's hard to control a classroom when you're doing that. And so that was very hard.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember that the principal had told me that he wouldn't speak, whether it was in class or playtime or whatever. He would never speak because he was very bullied in third grade by, unfortunately, by the teacher. The teacher put him in the corner and then kind of ignored him. And so, which I'm sure stunted it even more. And so he was it was I was so nervous because I wanted to do so much. And he started speaking in sentences. And I was so excited. And I would work with him after school. And we would try to do like, read like elementary, like lower elementary picture books, and then have him kind of try to tell me about what was going on. And I think one of the most rewarding things was having his parents come to me and during parent teacher conference, and they were crying because that normally on Sundays he would hide his uniform because he didn't want to go to school, but now he goes, where's my uniform, can I put it on now? And that would I'm gonna like get emotional. That was probably one of the most rewarding feelings that I ever had over there.
Oh man.
But yeah. One more story, but this will be a happy, funny story. I remember we were all, soccer was their favorite sport to play. They adored soccer. So sometimes for PE, I'd have this whole thing planned out and they'd go, can we play soccer? And I'm like, okay. and it was hard because we were required to wear skirts. And so I would try to play along, but sometimes I would just have to sit on a bench because I'm like, I don't know if I want to like navigate through the skirt to play soccer.
Yeah.
And so one of those times where I was playing and someone had kicked the ball right at Diedrich, and Diedrich was so scared. He went down and he ducked, and it like hit him right in the stomach where it was so funny when it happened. He like ducked to get out of the way of it, but he like ducked into it. Funniest moments. I remember we all just stopped and we like could not start playing again because we were laughing so hard. I remember I wrote that in my notes and I had come across it the other day and I just started laughing to remember that.
Man, that's the worst. Dodging something right into it.
It's all the best for everyone else.
That's true. Oh man, that's good stuff. I love that story you told about what was the student's name who had the trouble? Yeah. Sorry?
John Benedict, but we called him
JB. Oh man, like that right there. I hear stuff like that and I just think like that's why we do stuff like this. There's, you're talking about a fifth grader who is going through some struggles, and it's at this point in his life where he comes across somebody who cares enough about him as an individual, regardless of his struggles, to put a little extra time and a little extra care in, and to get that kind of response. To me, like that's priceless. And go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, most of the time with teachers, it's you never get instant gratification. It will be like 10 years down the road, then they come back and thank you for what you've done. Which I don't expect that because I was a teacher for a blink of an eye. But it was unexpected to get an instant gratification kind of experience, because it made me feel like perhaps because my biggest insecurity was that I shouldn't be there because I wasn't qualified. And I know that God qualifies the called, like that sweet quote. Yeah. But I'm still like, no, there's no way. There's no way. What was I even thinking? How could I think that I could do this? And to get a response like that, it didn't give me confidence in myself because I was still like, I don't know what I'm doing, but it was like confidence that, you know, if God can do that, he can use me
Mm.
and can work through me. I know I can't do it based on my skill set, but hopefully God can just work through me.
Oh man, I love that. I love that. And I think you're also touching on something that makes it a challenge for young people today in choosing whether they want to be a missionary. It's that thing about instant gratification. It's not something that people see as I'm getting a benefit of right now. And for a lot of people, they don't even see it as a benefit they're going to get long term, which is kind of sad. But man, especially when you're talking about them taking the time out of what they perceive to be their immediate gratification, it's it's so it's so challenging. I it's hard. Like up here, I happen to be the president of the social student missions club, and
I
having
was
to do, huh?
I was I was president of SM Club last year.
I'm gonna ask you some about that too then. Like I'm wondering if you, with Walla Walla it may be a little bit different, but up here it's like, I don't know, it doesn't seem like it's so much in the DNA of people to be open or have that willingness just for the concept of mission, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I see what you're saying. There always
And
has to be kind of like another thing there, not mission in and of itself.
yes, yes, it's like that's not good enough. Like that's not enough. Ah, yeah.
I know
It's
what yeah.
it's frustrating, but yeah, it's hard. The struggle that we've had here is just how can we make people see that this is something that it is a part of what we do on a daily basis, and then how can we share the stories so that people can understand the kind of impact you can have. That's what the whole podcast is about, is trying to help people to understand like how real it is and how much of a difference it makes, not only for the people that get served but for those who go to serve.
Right,
So
right.
I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. I mean, stories like this is definitely, it shows a huge impact on the missionary themselves. And I I don't know, I hope that does inspire people. But yeah, I don't know where I was going with that. You know, sometimes you start talking and you're like maybe it'll fly and then it just falls.
Dude, that happens to me all the time. I it's
But
rough
that's
times.
cool, having a podcast and doing
It's the worst. It's the worst. I'm sitting here trying to process what somebody is saying and like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna say something about that. Oh yeah, that's good too. And then I start talking because I know I had two or three really good points, and by the time I get to say something, I don't have anything. So I got my little notes and I just go to the next question. But I just outed myself on the podcast, so it is what it is. Anyhow,
like, oh, same.
it is what it is, it is what it is. So you touched on so many really cool things, like that insecurity you had personally going into that, and realizing that it wasn't going to be your ability that you could trust in. It had to come from somewhere outside of you. what
Mhm.
what was it like dealing with that, going through, like how did you deal with that going through the year?
Um, it was not. It's not something that just goes away. Unfortunately, it can hide and come back, hide and come back, and it's just this constant battle throughout. I mean, I'm sure realistically we all struggle with this, whether it's with what we're learning in college, what our future occupation will be. It's not just mission work.
That's a good point.
Anytime we're in some sort of leadership position, we are going to doubt ourselves.
Mhm,
And I think to a certain degree, that can be good because then we can say it's not my strength, it's his.
mhm,
To a certain degree, God calls us to a sense of confidence, whether it's in ourselves or it's in him.
mhm,
And so there were like people that I would talk to back on the mainland. And I would often like share my insecurities and be like, I shouldn't be here. I shouldn't be teaching. I'm not qualified. And like, it would just be the same thing over and over again that I would just repeat. And I do remember one of my friends saying like, um, well, it's not you, is it? If you trust that God will do it, then God will do it. And that's where your confidence should stem.
Mm.
I remember like a year before I had even gone out, I had a conversation with a friend, and he was talking about confidence, and he asked me if I had confidence, and I was like, no. very, very honest. I was like, no, because we all go through stages of insecurity, some more than others. And I remember I was extremely insecure. And he's like, well, why? And I was like, oh, well, I have shortcomings and I have, things that I can't do. And like, I'm not, I haven't built knowledge in the ways that I want to yet. And he's like, well, that's everyone. And I was like, yeah, but well, I don't. I didn't know what to say. And he was like, if you put your confidence in yourself, of course you will be insecure, because humanity will fail over and over again. Yes, you'll be successful at times, but you will always fail at other times. And if you put confidence in yourself, of course you're going to be insecure.
Mhm.
He's like, what you need to do is you need to put confidence in God and who God says you are. Put your confidence in something that will never, ever fail. And so that like changed my life.
Mm.
So I suddenly had this mindset where my confidence doesn't come from what I can do, and my insecurities don't come from what I cannot do, but my
Mm.
confidence comes from God and God alone. And any insecurity that tries to pry its way in, I can't feed it, I can't water it, I can't let it grow,
Mhm.
because that's not what God wants us to do. He wants us to be confident in him. And so I was reminded of that by someone when because I had told like a bunch of people about that. I was like, guys, listen to this, because I was so excited to hear about it. And someone was like, well, didn't you say that you put your confidence in God? And I was like, I did say that, didn't I? I was like, at what point I have that? And they were like, well, you should probably start living like that again. And I was like,
Wow.
and so I tried, it was like, oh, and I had this mantra. It was like truth over feelings, truth over feelings. And I would tell myself that all the time. And I was like, I may feel inadequate, but the truth is that God is where my confidence lies. And he's going to work through me. Like, I was like, this is on him. I was like, I'm taking these off my shoulders. It's on him.
Mhm.
And it was like, I don't know, there's so many mistakes that I made. I could write a book on all the mistakes that I made as a teacher in YAP, and an even bigger book for the rest of my life. Encyclopedia. But the thing is that no longer do I let myself be insecure from those mistakes. I acknowledge them, I learn from them, and I let them go, because if they stay on my chest, I'm gonna fall.
Mhm.
So it was
That's
a
deep.
constant reminder of truth over feeling, and my confidence is in God. And it was like, every time I fall short, acknowledge it, learn from it, and apologize, and try to, make things right, and then let it go and let God work through me the next time I face, another challenge. So I think that's how I worked with the insecurity. But I mean, it was the whole year. I don't think there was any point in time where I was like, I'm a good teacher. I never, ever said that. And looking back on it, I will still never, ever. But I didn't let my insecurity manifest itself in the way that I carried myself, in the way that I taught or talked to people. I always carried myself with the confidence that comes from God,
Mhm.
but with, the humility that comes with humanity.
Amen. Amen. Oh man, that's really powerful. Like we live in an age where I don't feel like people are comfortable dealing with their insecurities or acknowledging them, as you said.
Oh,
And it's like you almost I don't know. Let me know what you think about this. When
okay.
it comes to depending on God fully, I feel like we have to be willing to acknowledge those deficiencies and insecurities to get the fullest benefit of leaning on God. What do you think about that?
Um, yeah, I think that it's important to know where we fall short. Like, we should always be on a path towards trying to better ourselves. And it should be a goal of ours to try to become a better person. But when it comes to acknowledging insecurities, we have to be careful, because we have to be careful what kind of insecurities we're acknowledging, and the kinds that we try to better ourselves, and the kinds that we have to let go. If it's like, appearance insecurities, that's something that over time, if we repeatedly remind ourselves that we are loved and we are cherished, and it's not about how we are perceived visually by other people, that's something that I believe we can eventually let go. But if it's something like, I have no patience, then it's like, I'm gonna let that go and get angry all the time. Like, it is something that we should, try to work on, work on our breathing when we get flustered, and try to like make sure that it's something that we are bettering ourselves in.
Mhm.
So I think yes, and perhaps no to what you said. Just it's circumstantial, I suppose.
Okay. No, fair. That's a good point. That's a good point. So, would you say that dealing with that was the toughest thing that you went through there, or was there something else, or maybe an event that was really difficult for you to go through out there?
Um, the oh man. The whole year was so hard. When I first came back, I actually couldn't remember it, couldn't talk about it. I would give very generic answers, because I couldn't recall any information besides what my classroom looked like and what the apartment looked like.
Whoa,
Um,
whoa, whoa! You're gonna have to spill the deets. You're gonna have to. I'm curious. I'm curious.
yeah, no, I mean it's strange. That doesn't, when missionaries come back, normally they're dying for someone to sit down and listen to all of their stories, because they have so many stories and so many things they want to talk about it.
Yeah.
And so I got to college, everyone knew that, because we warned all of the Walla Walla students, were missionaries come back, don't just
Love it.
say how was it, take them to lunch and talk to them. And just,
That's a
so,
great idea.
yeah.
That's a great idea right there.
Oh, it's brilliant. It's lovely and it's incredible. But when people tried to do that to me, I was like, it was good. They'd be like, do you have any stories you want to tell me? And I'm like, no.
You're the first person that I've ever talked to who I've heard this perspective from. I've never heard it from anyone before. It's so unique.
Yeah, it is. I did come across someone who was similar to me, which it wasn't that they couldn't remember, because I think my brain blocked out a lot of it, because it was such, like, I can talk about it now and I can remember the good parts, thank God. But when I first came back, I couldn't remember anything but all the hard, painful bits and pieces. And so my brain said enough. And it
Mm.
was like, it was a dream. And I woke up from the dream and it was gone. And it was like, wow, I was there for 10 months. It doesn't feel like I was there for 10 months. It feels like I never even left. Sometimes
Wow.
people will like bring up mission work, and I'll be like, oh my gosh, I went on a mission trip. I, I would completely forget it. And I did meet one person though who was, they didn't forget like I did. They just were very unhappy. They were like uh displeased with like the mission experience.
Mhm.
Not their I don't want to like, I'm not going to say their names. I might be completely just misquoting them. But I think like what they were saying was like, people come back and they like glorify their mission trip, and they say how incredible it was and how beautiful and fun and amazing it was and life changing. He was like, that's the big thing that
Mhm.
bothered him. People said it was life changing, and he's like, it was just another year, but I was in a different place doing a different thing. And he's like, I don't want to romanticize it. So I thought that was a cool perspective as well,
Yeah,
because
that's
we
different.
often romanticize the past, whether it's a mission trip or even just describing a past thing. We romanticize it. We make it seem bigger than it was. Like I do have one story that I did remember, and I would tell it to anyone who asked, because it was about a spider, and I will dramatize. I'll like do it's my greatest story because I've
Hey, they
done it.
got big spiders out there though. Yeah, I'm not a fan of those things.
Yeah.
Those wolf spiders. Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
Yeah. But Yeah, I think that there was this whole process because I had read the returning mission I can't speak the returning missionary, and it was like, don't expect that you won't have reverse culture shock or something. And I was like, I'm not gonna get it. And it was literally I was doing the opposite of the book was saying. The book was like, expect to have it, and I was like, nah. I was like, you're being dramatic, but I got it.
Oh man.
And one of the factors of it was that I couldn't remember. I remember there was one time someone was telling me about their last day of school, and I was like I was trying to remember my last day of school, and I was like kind of talking about it, and I could remember bits and pieces of it, and I just started crying because I was so frustrated. I was like, why can I only remember the sad things? I was so upset. But when people talked about their mission trips, especially if they were on an island, it would trigger a memory of mine. And that was good. That was helpful. And coming to terms with the bad parts of the mission year was something that I had to do, but I'm like an escapist. If something is uncomfortable, I like leave. And so like if there's a sad thought, I'm like just try to like brush it aside. And it was like, no, you need to kind of sit with that, Rachel. You need to take the moments that were difficult, when maybe you got in a fight with a fellow missionary, or maybe when like you felt completely alone emotionally, even though you were surrounded by people. And hi, Jared. It's okay.
What's up, man?
Welcome to the podcast that you're now in. Hi. We're talking about. Oh, you should probably go. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. I didn't tell anyone that I was doing this. I forgot. Oh. Playing pickleball.
Yeah, it's all good.
Sorry. What was I talking about? Oh, was it sitting with sadness?
Yes.
Yeah, I had to do that. And then I had to forgive it, and I had to be okay with the fact that that was a big, the sad parts are just as big of a part of it as the happy parts were. I had to, as much as I wanted to only remember the happy parts, I had to also acknowledge the sad parts and know that it shaped me, and I wouldn't have it any other way, and kind of forgive that year. And then slowly but surely, when the memories came back, I no longer pushed them away. And now 2 years later, I can remember much more than the first week I came home.
That's crazy. Wow. Like, and that's one thing I really appreciate about the people who have been very open on the podcast. We've been talking about these things. Like, it's true that missions does tend to get romanticized a lot in an effort to try to convince people to go. And for me, I never thought that was fair, because it is hard. It's hard to be out there away from everything that you know for a year in a culture that's completely different, among people that you don't. I mean, you're often forced to be roommates and live with people you may not like or agree with at all. Like, that happens. Oh, that happens. And like, we're trying to keep it objective here. I'm the first one that's gonna say, hey, go do it. Like, by all means, go do it. But I'm also gonna say it ain't easy though.
No.
So I love the objectivity and getting to see both sides, because I think that's something that when people can embrace that happy is not all there is to life, then I think we can do a better job of living,
I want that printed on a t-shirt.
I don't remember what I said, but a good thing it's recording.
Yeah, go back on YouTube later.
I'll send it to you. But yeah, like, just to have that balance. You look at what's going on in the world today. People don't know how to deal with something that challenges their insecurities or goes against what their perception of happiness is. Like, they don't know how to exist with that. They feel like it's such an invasion that it shouldn't exist at all, instead of, like you're saying, embracing it and learning to sit with that and to deal with that.
Yeah. No, psychologically, if all we do is try to be happy, we're going to end up angry.
It's true.
Repressed emotions come out.
That's such a paradox right there, but that is so true. That is so true. Oh man, that's deep. Uh, that's a good one. That's a good one. So I'm curious now. I don't want to know like necessarily everything that you didn't like about that year, but
Right. Makes sense.
but
I understand. We're trying to get missionaries.
no.
Say
No,
every
not for that reason. Not for that reason.
I'm joking.
Oh man, this is great. So, but I guess what I'm getting at is I I want a clear picture of what was it that made it that difficult and made you feel like it was something that you didn't want to remember initially when you came back, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it does. This is something that I have thought about a lot because at first I was very bitter towards the mission year and I didn't know why.
Mm,
And I didn't know if it was things that had happened or if I was struggling with the concept of mission work and like I didn't know if it was the way I left or what. And so I have sat and thought about this quite a bit. I can narrow I can think of two like distinct moments that were especially painful, I think. Um and it's very broad. It's not like this one thing happened and therefore I have did it. Hated it. It was more, it was a very us and them between the staff.
mm.
And so I just remember like there it was we had I want to be very careful. I will not say their name, but there was a staff member who was slightly problematic. I don't want to be mean. I don't want to say anything that is not kind, but perhaps they did um, create drama
Mhm.
per se between some of the staff.
Mm.
And I'm an escapist. I'm like no conflict, no tension. I will do anything you ask. Please, no, no uncomfortable feelings, and we are good. So they love that about me because they will tell me to do something and I will question
Mhm.
it. But this person, which I admire, their um like their tenacity for justice, which was incredible. But then it was almost like, oh, like I admire this that you want to, you know, challenge this because maybe you have a better idea. And I think like, oh, yes, do that, but maybe less. Because it started to become everything, every little thing was being challenged, and to the point where it was like we had something as small as like designated drivers challenge that, and we were like, but it's not a big deal. Or uh yeah, I remember there was one very very big dramatic thing in it. We actually got the whole board like was involved with it, and it was but there was, and this one thing though that it was centered around, I was on their side with this. I was like, yeah, that is wrong and I will stand by you for this. So that was good, but it did create a lot of tension. And so the administration, we it was just I was hoping that fellow missionaries would be my safe place,
Mm.
being in a new environment. uh I to be there for each other emotionally, to be there for each other when we were out of food, maybe, I don't know, like just like um I guess I wanted this concept of family between the missionaries who were there, and instead it felt very us and them, and it felt very like conflict and unspoken conflict too, because we would never go out and say that we didn't like the way so and so did this and that, but oh, they would tell me, I don't know why. I would be like, oh no. And so I can like feel it. And it was so, and I'm an empath, so I can feel people's
Wow.
emotions and myself. And I was like, like, you need to rest. I
So it's
feel too
like you're
much.
in the middle. You're in the middle
Yeah.
getting pulled between both of these different emotional sides and trying to
Yeah.
escape from both of it, but you're not able to. I mean, you're on an island. Like, where can you go?
And not even that, but we were very much confined to the compound,
Oh.
which not quite like I've heard of people who've been to like Timor Leste, and that is serious confinement. But for us, it was more so a girl had been murdered 9 or 10 years before
Mhm.
because she was on a run, and so they are very strict with missionaries. Like you cannot leave unless you're in a big group. You cannot take the car without the designated driver. This and that, which I understood, but it was very like, as an escapist, it was very difficult. It was a very hard concept for me because normally, like in college or at home, if I'm feeling uncomfortable, I can drive away and I can
Mhm.
go somewhere and I can go on a hike, I can go on a run and like just dispel those emotions. But here, it was like I could not escape them, and I could not escape the people who was it just felt it was a constant tension, which there were some times where it was resolved and that was like mwah, one of the most like there was one staff member who didn't like the girl missionaries because she invited us over for dinner, but she told one missionary and she forgot to tell us and we didn't know and she forgot, and then the lady had made this like beautiful like bountiful feast and we never showed up. And so from then on, she was like very cranky with us, and I didn't know why. I remember I came into the office because the office was the only place with air conditioning, right? And it was recess, and I was like,
Oh,
okay,
wow, 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 wow.
yeah. So I like sat in the AC, and I was like, oh, I am so tired. And she's like, why are you tired? And I was like, oh, teaching. I remember she was like, oh, why are you tired? All you do is play with them. And I was like, ow, that hurts me.
Yeah, that hurts.
Like, you've never even been in my classroom. What are you saying? Because I felt like I was working very hard and trying to keep order. And like, I teach every single subject, including PE and
Mm.
music and computers. And I do after school ukulele and piano and tutoring lessons. I was like, what do you do? And,
Yeah.
and, but, yeah, oh, that, I was like, why doesn't she like us? We didn't do anything, but we did. We just didn't know.
Mm.
And I remember like 3 months later, I kept trying. I was like, I'm gonna be friends with this woman. So I kept trying to like ask her about her life and her family, and I was like prying. I was like, tell me more. And so it worked. We became friends, and finally, and then when we became friends, and then all the girl missionaries and her became friends. We all became friends with this like 60-year-old secretary, lovely woman, from like Maryland. And finally, she was like, "Yeah, well, I was so grumpy with you guys because I made this beautiful dinner and you never showed up." And we
Oh,
were like,
man.
"What?" And the missionary who forgot was like, "Oh no!" And so that was a wonderful time where something that was like high, it felt like high tension was like resolved, and I was like, wow, that and
Wow.
just put that away. There,
Wow.
unfortunately, there were like 2 or 3 of those unspoken tension between the missionaries that I felt like I couldn't escape from.
Mhm.
And so that was one of the painful things of the year, of just feeling like I had there was one other fellow missionary. She and I became like best of friends. But I didn't feel close to almost anybody else
Mm.
besides a family that had lived there. I became very close to that family, but it was my friend, and then that family, and then it felt like I was just disconnected from everyone, and it felt like I was alone, and I don't know, it was just, that was a hard thing for me.
Hmm.
I think the other hard thing for me was, um, there was so much that I wanted to say to my students on the last day of school. But then, the first half of the last day, I had all of these like games planned out. I was like, we're gonna have a soccer match, we're gonna have an Uno match, we're gonna listen to music. I don't think we were gonna listen to music. I think it was a drawing thing, and I had all of their favorite things over the year that they love to do. They love to paint, play soccer, play Uno, and all of that. And I planned out this like immaculate schedule for that. And every time I tried to make it happen, they like rejected it. They're like, we don't want to do that. And I got so frustrated. Like, I know I shouldn't have gotten angry and frustrated, but I was like, what? I was like, I'll put in work. I was like, this is the last day. This is the last day I may ever see you guys in this lifetime. We're gonna do this. So I was like, we're gonna play Uno, or you're gonna go to the office. And they went to the office, and I was like,
wow.
I was like, oh no. Okay, I guess you can do whatever you want. I suppose it's the last day. It doesn't matter. And so it was like fun and games, not my fun and games, but fun and games for like the first half of the last day. And then the second half of the last day, like I had a bunch of like these things like towards the last couple of weeks, if every time they had a good memory, I wanted them to write it down and put it in this envelope. And so I like got us all around and we like read it and we were going through it. And then the principal was like, hey, we're gonna have an assembly for the last day of school. And I was like, okay, bring all the students there. And I had a towel around my neck because I was crying. I was crying the whole day. And I was like, pull yourself together, Rachel. I couldn't do it because I was like, I only slept like 4 hours. And then I was like so sad. And even like looking back on it, this is like one of the most painful things ever. The assembly lasted until the bell rang. And they had a bus system. They could not miss their buses. So they had to leave. And I just remember feeling like I never got this like goodbye closure from these amazing, incredible students that I had bonded with that I may never be able to see again or meet again, like in this lifetime. And so they grabbed their stuff, they gave me a group hug, and they left.
Wow.
And that was my like goodbye. And it felt, I just remember standing in the classroom just like, it's over. This is it. That there's nothing more to this school year. Like they're gone. They're gone forever. And that I just, that's the story that made me cry like last year when I tried to talk about it. Because it was so hard. I do remember though, while we were in the group hug, I told them like, because there was a guy I had dated a few years ago who was a missionary, and he had said he told his students that in heaven after the great banquet or the feast to meet him under the tree of life next to the river. And I was like, I'm gonna remember this. And so I told my students the same thing. So when we were in the group hug, I remember just shouting as loud as I could because they were all like yelling, like, goodbye, goodbye. And I just remember shouting, I was like, meet me under the tree. Don't forget. Like, please meet me under the tree in heaven, please. They like ran out. And I had one student who stayed, Diedrich, my wild child, which it's always the crazy ones that we like that just have a special place in our heart.
So true.
Absolutely bonkers. He gave me white hairs. One of the sweetest boys. And so he had a later bus, so he stayed behind and he helped me like clean the classroom. He loved organizing my desk. That was his favorite chore. And I remember I stepped out to do something and I came back and he's like, oh, my bus is here. He gave me a hug and he left. And on my desk were these sticky notes, and he wrote like, goodbye, like, I love you. And then he wrote, I'll see you in heaven. And I was like, oh my gosh, hopefully sooner, but like if not, then I'm just so super sad memory, but it ends on a good note. But
yeah, that's awesome. One day.
Absolutely.
Oh man. Wow. After going through all of that, like, do you what was your most like growing experience, or what I don't even know how to ask the question. Like, how do you feel that you grew the most from that experience?
From the experience like being a teacher out there, or the experience of like the painful goodbye?
Ooh, all of it.
Cool. So for the first one, as a whole in general, I'm going to give some context of me just a little bit. I have ADHD. If you can't tell by my eyes going like this, the whole you like put this YouTube video like 2 times, you'll just see my eyes go like, and you'll see my hands. I have to do something. My brain is like this all the time. I love it. I love having ADHD because I think it's so much. It doesn't like ADHD, the education system.
Right.
So I have been on ADHD medication since 8th grade, but I decided for my mission year, I was going, for the first time in like 7 years, I was going to stop taking my ADHD medicine.
Okay.
So I was super nervous, but mostly excited because it turned my world from like grayscale to colorful, which
Mm.
was so exciting. It did take me about 10 times longer than any other missionary to do my lesson plans, but whatever. I was happy, But another thing is that for me, and this isn't for everyone has their own ADHD journey. Some people are frustrated with it and then they find the medication and then they're so relieved that finally they can focus on things that they want to do. Some people are the opposite. I was very successful in high school. I did extremely well in class, but I hated it because it stifled my emotions. And that was, having such deep emotions is something that I cherished about myself, and to not be able to feel them,
Mm.
but it was just extremely difficult for me to like be okay with that. But I was told that like if I didn't take this medication, I wouldn't make friends. I was told that if I didn't take this, I wouldn't get A's. I was told if I didn't
What?
take it, like I wouldn't be successful. Yeah, yeah,
You
it's sad.
know,
It's
the
fine.
educational system is tripping for that. I, I'm not a scientist by any means. I'm just a dude. But like students, I found that students who have ADHD and who are, I don't even know if labeled is the right word, because I feel like it's just thrown out there. But I feel like those are some of the most creative people, and that they end up getting stifled because a teacher doesn't know how to deal with that creativity.
Mm.
That's what I feel like.
Oh no, that is supported by science and psychology.
I
that
ain't a
that
scientist though, but
scientists back you up.
hey, I'll take
It
it. I'll take
is,
it.
I yeah, ADHD people with ADHD do tend to be like extremely creative, but they also do tend to have anxiety and depression. It kind of goes hand in hand, but it's incredible that the way that it works is that they have an outlet for that pain that they get,
Right.
and it's like I just thought that that was incredible when that kind of clicked in my head that like oh no, this mental illness is so difficult to deal with, but then they find an outlet for it. And so I think that that's, yeah, very cool. Doesn't work great in the educational system unless they find something that they're super into, then they are like so good at it.
Mhm.
Because the thing is, it's not that we can't, no, it is. It's like we can and we can't focus. If we are extremely fascinated by something, then like we can be zeroed in. Like if I love a book, I will never put it down,
Mhm.
which doesn't make, well, but I'll like pace, like I'll walk around while I read it. But like things that are like just arbitrary information that we need to sponge in our brains because of the factory like educational system that we were
That's
shoved in.
boring.
Um, we tend to just it's hard to kind of be like, yes, we will sit and memorize all the stuff of the Mayan culture. we're not like interested. It's so difficult. But yeah.
No,
It's
I feel you on that. I feel you.
yeah, you're absolutely right that like people who have ADHD do tend to be some of the most creative people. I've had people tell me that they think of it as a superpower, and I've always taken aback when people say that, which I've started to get into that mindset because I love it so much more.
Hmm.
Um, but I had always seen it as like a hurdle that I had to get over, like an obstacle that was always in my way. And why can't I be normal, you know? Um, and so I went through a journey with that where I hated the medicine, and then I felt insecure without the medicine because I was too loud and too crazy. And my mom would say that I would end my sentences with commas, not periods, and I spoke and run on sentences, not paragraphs. So like I just keep going. And sometimes it's like you gotta just gotta because I'm going all over the place. I just did that. But bottom line, basically what I'm trying to say is that on my journey with this, I felt confident enough in who I was as a person that I decided that I didn't need the medicine for the mission year. And so I stopped. Wow, this was a very long story for the answer. Sorry.
It's all good. That's what we out here for.
Okay. So the one of the biggest things that I learned was that I am okay without my medicine.
Mm.
I will make friends. I was so surprised um, that people aren't deterred by my loud and crazy and kind of chaotic personality. Some people like it, and I was like, oh, this is crazy. Oh, it's so exciting. But on the other side of that, all the deep emotions that I did not get to feel for like 6 years came up again.
Mm.
So before, I wasn't chaotic with my feelings. I was fairly plateaued. You know, you get highs and you get lows.
Hmm.
But you know, for deep feelers, it's a roller coaster. You get high highs, but you get low lows.
Mm.
And I wasn't ready for that transition from off of ADHD medicine into life in a foreign place, working instead of being taught and like
Mm-hmm.
being surrounded by people I really didn't know, and to get high and low lows that I wasn't quite used to. And so I think understanding my emotions and now I can say that I cherish them, but before it was more like I despised them.
Mm.
I wanted to be normal. I didn't want to feel like every time I was happy I was flying and every time I was sad I was drowning. I didn't want that. I wanted to just be a plateau again. But I didn't want to lose them. It was like this weird battle, like why can't I just be normal kind of thing. And I learned that normal is relative and no one truly is normal, and that
And
because
it's
I have
overrated.
and is overrated because I have ADHD, because I have deep emotions, I am I'm able to connect with people very like well, and that is something that I am so grateful for. I'm able to create art and poetry, and when I read I can get lost in things. And so learning to like embrace that about myself instead of try to reject it is something that that journey started on that island.
Mm.
For sure. So as a general, what did that year teach me? It taught me that I have very deep emotions, and that there's something to be seen as beautiful, not as something to hate.
Yes.
That was cool.
Oh, that's awesome. Like, oh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Man, I I don't remember the interaction I had with you in Hawaii.
Mhm.
I don't even remember which time in Hawaii because been there so many times. But
Right, right.
I what I said in the intro, like I wasn't joking. I don't remember the interaction I had with you, but there was something about, I don't know, your presence or whatever it was, that's what I remembered. And it's just like you I'm serious. I'm serious. Like I can't make this up because it's not like we know each other like that.
Right. Just Instagram buddies.
Yeah. But like I don't know, like I could sense that, and that was cool. That's definitely something that stood out to me, and that memory is one of the reasons I was like, yo, I got to reach out to this girl and get her on this podcast.
Wow.
So yeah.
That means a lot, dude. It really does.
So that to me is so crazy because I never would have had any idea, but now hearing you explain it, it makes perfect sense. Perfect.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about. Now, this is something that always I'm so curious about when it comes to the receptiveness of people. You described being in YAP differently than what I am familiar with as a missionary. Like in Palau, it's very open. There have been some tragedies that have happened there, of course, as well. But we're very much able to go kind of where we want, when we want, type of thing. Get to meet people, students, and stuff outside of the classroom and so on. Um, and as a result of that, we're able to get a real good pulse on how people receive what we're doing and how how our appearance is in the community. So that's the first side of it. I'll stop there and ask you that first. What was your sense of people's receptiveness to what you guys were doing there in YAP?
Yeah, that I in my mind I thought that that's what the experience was going to be like. And then when I learned more and more about YAP, I realized that it is a very reserved community, and they are very quiet. They keep to themselves. They are so respectful. Um, but that did mean that we didn't quite create as close bonds with people because they are very closed off,
Mhm.
both emotionally and physically. They keep to themselves. So the students, when they left on the bus, they left on the bus. No one ever came to the school. Was 20 minutes away from town. No
Mm.
one ever came to the school for funsies, which I thought that they would. Like I think on the first couple of days, I kind of would walk around and be like, "Where are they?" I'm like, "Hello," but no, they stay home. Um, we had a couple cars, and all of them were sketchy.
Mm.
Very. We had one that the gas gauge didn't work, so hopefully there was gas in it, but and so and that was the car I used fairly often. Bertha.
Yeah.
When the designated drivers went down to get their Yappies license, I went with them and I was like, I'm getting one. And so I wasn't technically a designated driver, but there were often times where I did end up driving.
Hey.
Sometimes a designated driver would just be like, thanks for letting me know. Now I know the time that you're leaving, because you should always let someone know when you're taking a car.
That's
And so
a good point.
yeah, I thought that was great. Yeah, so yeah, if I drove Bertha because I knew her the best, but she was scary. There were a couple hills where I was not sure if I was gonna make it, but I was like, I'm just gonna gas it. Obviously it's gonna be fine. And it was fine. I never got stuck, but I hoped I never got stuck because I don't have service.
Right.
I just have to. But the thing is, if you go into an outer island, which an outer island I thought would be a separate island, but it's not. It's just the outer rim of the island.
Interesting. YAP is
Yeah,
only one island.
one big island, and then there are outer islands, but within the main island, they did call the towns that were towards the outer edge, outer island,
Interesting.
and they all had their own dialect.
Hmm.
And yeah, it was very cool. And the thing is, sometimes I had to drive into those to drop students off.
Mm.
If I ever wrote down, one of the cool things is that if you are in an outer island and you are not of their specific I don't know what to call it,
Like
area.
tribal
Yeah,
region.
tribe. You have to carry a leaf, and that shows that you're a visitor.
Hmm.
You don't carry a leaf, that is very rude. And so I was always hoping I never get stuck. So I'm like, do I just pick a leaf and then be like, help? Yeah. Um, I'm talking about how they perceive this. Oh, okay. So I had talked to a few locals about like, oh, have you heard of YAP SDA? And their response is like, yeah, we've heard of them. And I'm like, because I was told that the islands would love the SDA missionaries and be like, oh, you're SDA, yay! And so I was like hoping for that. And they're like, oh, you were the missionaries who only stay for 1 year. And I'm sorry. Which, I mean, they have a point. 1 year to create bonds and connections with people. 1 year is not enough, but sometimes in that time in our life, that's all we can give. I mean, some people can only give 2 weeks, and I don't know, sometimes that's just life. And so it's not something I was like ashamed of, but it was something that I felt very bad for, because I was like, I would stay 2 years if I could. But I have school. Like, I
Yeah.
have to finish college eventually. I was like, maybe I'll come back, or I do want to do mission work long term this time, because there are arguments on this, but I do think 10 months isn't quite long term. I would like to stay for years if I can. But
That's a good
yeah,
point.
yeah, that they would say about the SDA mission, because the Catholic missionaries, which they had a beautiful school, and they were doing very well with, I think their English program was excelling very well, and I met their principal, and he was very kind, and they were like, well, the Catholic missionaries stay for 2 years, and I was like, I was like, I can't, I'm sorry. I'm like, they're both good. So, yeah, me with uncomfortable emotions. I'm just like, oh, can't we all just get along? They'll be like, I'm so sorry.
That's too good.
If they can't see me, they're gonna be like, why did she change her voice so much? Well,
That they're gonna have to watch the YouTube edition too. They're just gonna have to.
so this is what's gonna draw them in. Be like, come on, don't you want to see all the chaos?
Try to give the people what they want.
But as
Oh
far as
man.
perception, yeah, it was difficult to create close bonds. Obviously, we got close to our students, but anyone else, it was very difficult. And not, I don't ever want to come across that it was like their fault, because no, absolutely not. You know, it's not their job to be always like trying to get to know us, or vice, you know, it's their culture is beautiful, and they had a celebration for it, Claudia Day, and it was just mwah, gorgeous. I loved it. It may not have been what I was expecting, but I hope I have not come across as me like saying anything negative towards it, because I think it's an incredible, beautiful, amazing culture. And as far as their perspective of Seventh-day Adventists, I can understand where they're coming from, because it is a very small school that is 20 minutes away from town, versus, you know, someone who has more consistent missionaries for people who stay longer. And that, I mean, just makes sense to me. So if we can get consistent missionaries to YAP, that would be a game changer. Even better, if we could create some sort of program that educates the islanders themselves to become teachers, and they just stay there. Oh my gosh, that is and can we please teach Yappy's history at a Yappy school?
Oh.
I didn't know it, and I couldn't teach it, and I was so confused why I was teaching them about US history. I was like, this is about the American Revolution. And they're like, why do we need to know? And I was like, I don't know. Just give them the NAD requirements.
Oh, that's such a good point. There's so much there. One thing I think about is how what you said about the presence of missionaries, uh, the Seventh Day Adventist movement, and I'm also going to say this before I say this comment. I've
Okay.
been sure to tell people that, you know, like I told you, this is a very unprofessional. It's also non-PC, so we just,
Oh,
you know, we just say what we say and we go from there. I'm not sponsored by anybody, so they can't stop me. But
oh, speak, man. Speak freely. I'm ready. I'm so excited.
when it comes to Adventism, this is a movement that was supposed to have been based on mission. It
Mhm.
experienced its greatest growth in mission, and yet now it's something that we have the most issue with. I don't know if you've noticed the numbers overall of missionaries declining throughout the years. It's become so people don't want to hear about it anymore. It seems like in some of the schools,
Mhm.
when it comes to the the gospel commission, oftentimes people have turned that into just preaching instead of actually going and living with people and
Oh,
getting to get to know them and make a difference like
right.
Jesus did, you know, that dude. Like there's so much about it to me that's backwards. I'm in the seminary here right now, and I originally came wanting to do chaplaincy, realized that I left the mission field to come back here to train to be a missionary. So I was like, what emphasis do I want for this degree? Oh, well, obviously missions, right? I knew that they had one because they did when I first started.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
when I went to switch, guess what? They don't have it anymore. There's no missions emphasis for the MDiv because no one's taking it.
Oh, wow.
So I ended up having to switch to youth and young adult ministry. Fortunately, there's a doctorate for it. So now I have to stay when I finish that to do that. But the fact that it's become so isolated and minimalized to a spot where only people who really want to do it can do it. To me, it's like, what are we like? What are we really about anymore
Yeah,
as Adventists? And it's
yeah.
like, it. I don't know. So to me, some things are very simple, and especially in the seminary, I know I'm in there right now, so whoever hears this, who's also in there, might have something to say. But it is what it is. Like we learn a lot of great stuff in there,
That's good. That's good.
a lot of great information. But
But
if I'm being completely honest about, you know, how am I going to use this stuff there, and then where's the encouragement from there? That's like, you know, one of my buddies told me this the other day. Like this is where the future leaders of our belief system are coming from. If
Mhm.
they don't have a heart for service, and if their main thing is learning how to preach the best way that they can in churches to people who already believe the same stuff we do, what what are we accomplishing? Like, what's the goal?
Yeah, no, that really puts it into perspective.
It
Uh,
that really bothers me. And then you have, like you mentioned, Catholics, they're young people, and it's young people they can get to go out there for 2 years. Mormons, same thing, 2 years.
yeah,
It's like a requirement. But oh
yeah,
no, no, no. Heaven forbid that Adventists who are based on mission would ever require young people to go be missionaries. I
yeah. That's interesting. It's interesting.
don't know.
I could talk for literally forever about missions. I do think that one of the problems that we have with our outlook on mission is that we see it as such a temporary thing. We
Yes.
are very comfortable with how we live in this lifestyle. Like, look at my room, it's gorgeous. I love it. Very comfortable in this kind of lifestyle that if we are to be removed somewhere, we're like, well, we'll do it for a year. We'll do it for like 2 weeks. And when we do it with that kind of temporary mindset,
Mhm.
who are we doing it for? Why are we doing it? Are we doing it so that we get an experience? And even then, there's an entire other branch that we need to look at the white savior effect and making sure that
Mm.
we're not trying to like make people more like us,
Right.
but we need to become more like them. And if there's an opportunity to funnel Jesus in that, then we should. But like, are we going because we think we're better? We can't put ourselves
Ooh,
on any sort of
ooh.
pedestal when we go into the mission field. So
Yes.
I feel like when we talk about missions, oftentimes we talk about how we changed their lives so much and we need to go out there, and it just kind of, I can see how people would be deterred by mission work because sometimes on occasion people have talked about it as if they were on a pedestal. Look at them, how amazing that they were missionaries.
Mhm.
And it should just be, I mean, honestly, if we stopped using the word missionary, I think that the problem would be, I think it would help if we stopped saying the word missionary. And if I, instead of saying, yes, I was a missionary for a year, ask me questions. It was more like, yeah, I was a teacher. I mean, it's so much less romanticized, so much less dramatized.
Mhm.
And I think that, a big deterrent for people is that, mission work can come across as white savior effect. It can come across as not altruistic, but really the person going is trying to get this experience. I mean, even
Right.
in the beginning, I talked about how I wanted to travel. That was, one of the biggest factors for me. I wanted to live somewhere else for a year. I did, like, more than anything, I did want to talk about God and try to spread his love as best I can. And that is not for last year. That's just my life. That's what I want to do.
Mhm.
But I mean, there were other, other motives. I did want to live on an island for a year. One thing though is Yap did not have surf, and that is one of the reasons why I chose it, or why, Brittany kind of chose it for me, which I told her to. But I was like, okay, good, no surf, so I won't get distracted. Because if I was on like Pompeii, I would be surfing all the time. That would have been good.
Yeah.
But
One of the times, oh man, when was that? It might have been, I can't remember, but there were legit some guys who came to the orientation in Hawaii with their surfboards.
nice. They're
To
like, all
bring
right,
them.
when is the seminar over? We gotta, we're missing the
Check the tides, check the tides.
remember when I was in Hawaii, they didn't bring their own surfboards when I went, but they talked to the school and they're like, hey, you got any
Oh.
more? And they found some and they invited me, but like I was like, now and it wasn't because I was like, oh no, I am holier than thou. It was more like, I was way too tired to be like paddle, because surfing's like 75% just paddling, and I was like, I think I'm gonna take a nap. Thank you though. But, no, people who surf, they surf.
Yeah. Never sleeps. So also the other side of receptiveness, people here to your experience. What was it like um for other people to understand your experience, and how did they receive that when you came back or even while you were there?
Oh man, it is so different for each person, but like, man, know your audience. So when I'm talking to other missionaries, all guards come down and I can just talk.
Yeah.
I don't have to pretend that it was some holy, life-changing experience. I can be like, oh, it was rough. They'd be like, same. And I'm like, oh, were they crazy for you? They're like, some days I didn't even want to get out of bed. It just kind of bond. Because anyone who is not a missionary, they want to hear about like your God moment, which I love God moments. I live for God moments. I live in a God moment. God is great. But it's like also very candied to me.
Mhm.
It's not really quite, the full, experience. And it's nice with other missionaries because sometimes I don't even have to talk and they're like, oh, same. And I'm like, I didn't even say anything. They're like, I could read your mind. When you talk to people in the church, it's completely different too. Like if you're giving like a children's story, you're gonna talk about like mangoes. Like you're gonna talk about something very fun and very like exciting, and you have to talk as though you cherished and loved every single moment. But oftentimes what I would tell people if I could talk about it, which it took me a year to be able to even like talk about it.
Mhm.
But I would say I was like I was like, what if I asked you how was your year? How would you respond? And they're like they're like, wait. And I'm
That's a
like,
good one.
yeah, and I'm like, obviously my year, is unique in that I moved across the world and I was in a place I was unfamiliar and I was doing a job I wasn't used to. So it makes sense why they would ask me that question. But I'd be like, how can I answer that in all the ups and downs that life brings within an entire year with moments I can't remember and the few that I can, I'm unable to give you an answer. Because if I were to ask you how your year was, I'm sure you would feel the same way, overwhelmed with the everything and nothingness all at once.
Mhm.
Um,
That's a good way to
that
put
was where I, know your audience. Other times I would say, good, thanks.
it. That's really knowing your audience right there.
Or I would say it was great, but it was hard.
Mhm.
And then sometimes that would be it. But yeah, as far as perception, I'm sure I got a lot of different perspectives on my year from other people. I'm sure there are people who would be like, Rachel was miserable the entire time, and there'd be some people who would be like, she will never be the same because it was so beautiful. So I perceive how I perceive it. It was everything all at once that one can experience in a year.
Mm,
I had heartbreak, and I also had elation. Like it was everything.
mm. Oh man, that's really cool. Building on that, like what would you say your biggest takeaway or a lesson that you learned from that experience was?
Ooh. I'll have to think for a moment on that one. Because there's so many lessons you're gonna learn, just like in a year of life.
Mhm.
And there's moments where you learn and you grow, and moments where you're stagnant. I really found who I was with emotions again. That was
Mhm.
crazy. But I wouldn't say that's my biggest takeaway. Oh, I have one for you. I'm gonna tell it like a story though, because
All
that's
right.
what. When I first got there, there were two shelves of a bookshelf filled with books. Some of them were like the Great Controversy, but some of them were like chapter books. Some of them were children books. There was quite the assortment shoved into those two shelves, and one of the books was The Shack.
Hmm.
To anyone who has read The Shack knows like what I'm gonna say is that it have you read it?
I actually have not.
Add it to your list. um yeah, I had heard about it and heard that there was a movie about it, but I never read it, and I love reading. So when I got there, I was looking at the shelf, and I picked it up and I started reading it, and I wasn't really knowing what to expect. But without spoiling anything, it is one of the books that that told me how much God loves me, and not because I've done anything to be worthy of it.
Mm,
And to hear that Jesus loves you, that God loves you, that the Holy Spirit loves you, I feel like that's something we've heard our entire life. We're like, yeah, and
yeah.
we just so callous to it. And so sometimes it takes stories that break our hearts to break down our walls to understand what the gravity of that love.
Mm,
And I study religion, so the last 4 years of my life I've been studying that love, and it's big and it's wild and it's incomprehensive. I mean, if God is an ocean, our cup is but a mind. How can we
mm,
even comprehend all that there is and all of the love that he has there to give us? But we hear this day after day, which is, it's great that it is solidified into our minds, but it's unfortunate that we've been callous to it, that we don't understand that his love isn't what we can do to deserve it, which I feel like even if we won't acknowledge that, we live like it
Mm.
in the way that, like, we always are trying to receive affirmation that what we're doing is good and well and successful. I mean, that's everything in life is based on how successful you are,
Yeah.
from when you're tiny and earning grades in school to when you're older and trying to get that promotion in your career. We're always trying to receive that affirmation, and God is saying, like, whoa, can you slow down for a second and just know that even if all you do today is wake up, I love you more than I ever could and ever will. That I will always love you. I have always loved you. There's nothing you can do to take that love away. And you also can't add to it, because my love is infinite, and it's not, getting bigger because it's already biggest it can be. You can't make me love you more by being a good teacher, Rachel. Just sit. Just sit in that. Sit in the fact that this is something that I told myself during the pandemic, because that was, it is hard for everybody.
Mhm.
Something I had to tell myself is, if all I'm doing right now is existing, that is enough.
Mm.
Because I know that God's love for me isn't about what I can do. It's there.
Mhm.
And 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 it's easy for me to say, because I've had that encounter with God a lot, and I'm very emotional, so it's easy for me to be like, yes. Easy is not the right word. I know that, there are so many people out there who have heard that God loves them but have not experienced it, and it's coming for you. Just be ready. Brace yourselves. It's gonna be a flood, a flood of love. But I think that my biggest takeaway from mission work was that God loves me, not because I'm a missionary or teacher. I should stop saying missionary. Not because I was a teacher, not because I am nice to people. It's not any of that. He loves me because he created me, and that's enough.
Mm.
Something someone sent me that I will always remember, because it was literally like the nicest thing ever. Um, it was like a devotional, and she's like, "Hey, I think you should read this." And so I read it one morning, and it said, "God is proud of you before you even get out of bed in the morning."
Mm.
And that just, like, it felt like a weight was lifted off of my shoulders. Because all my life I have been searching for that affirmation, and I worked so hard in everything that I do, because I want to receive that affirmation, whether it's from my parents or from my employer or from God himself.
Mhm.
I want to know that what I'm doing is good and that it's right. And I'm not a perfectionist, but man, I want it to be perfect, And to hear that it wasn't whether or not I was successful, that God is proud of me, proud, not just that he loves me, but that he's proud of me. What? That was like a concept I haven't even entertained before. I always, even though I knew in my mind that God loves me no matter what, I didn't feel it. I didn't know it in my heart and in my actions and in the way that I lived. My philosophy of life was that I need to do good in order to receive good. And it just, it shattered that. And it told me that my existence is enough. That's that's all I have to do. Anything else is, the outpouring of love of God into me is what motivates me in anything that I do now.
Mm.
It's not, well, okay, I mean, I'm human, so of course I'm trying to get good grades, and I am trying to be successful, and I am trying
Of
to
course.
receive affirmation. Like, that is just something that it's hard to get into us, but it is less ingrained into who I am as a person. And
Mhm.
it's more so that the motivation behind me doing things is no longer to receive, that affirmation from God that he's proud of me or that he loves me, but rather, because he is proud of me and because he loves me, I am so overwhelmed that I need to share that. I need to spread that, whether it's with my actions or conversations with people, or just emotionally just writing about it, or what have you. Like, it was just, it reframed my thinking.
Mm.
I always think of it, sorry, I'm rambling, but I always think of it as, when you encounter God in the gospel, it's almost like hearing a very good joke. um I don't know. I think this applies to all people, but I might be wrong. But when you hear a really, really, really funny joke, like you can't stop laughing, it is the best joke you've ever heard. Like, what is the first thing you want to do after you hear it?
Yeah,
I
talk
would hope it. Yes, absolutely. It's a different answer that I'm screwed with my entire philosophy. But when you get an amazing joke, you want to go and tell someone, and you want to tell them quickly, and you want them to laugh just as hard as you did because you want to share that experience that you had. And I feel like an encounter with God and the true gospel, not always what we hear is the gospel, but the true gospel that God loves you and your identity is found in him, and it's not in what you can do, but what he's done for you. When you hear that and you encounter that, you have to go tell somebody, you know? And once you hear jokes, you're like, I need to find more jokes. I need to read up. I need to read a joke book. I had knock knock joke books when I was a kid. I loved reading them, and they're just like chuckle, you know. And I feel like it's the same thing when you hear something so overwhelmingly powerful, filled with love and grace and mercy. You want to share it. You're overwhelmed by it. You have to spread it, and then you want to learn more about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is, you know, I don't know, that journey. I felt like for years, God had been building a foundation in my life. But in YAP, and when I came home that year after YAP, because it was so difficult, that's like a different story. But like I leaned on God completely, and it felt like in YAP and that year afterwards, God started building a house on top of that foundation.
Mm.
And that is probably, I think the question was lesson that I learned it, and all that was that.
Yo,
I'm so sorry.
not at all, not at all. I'm just soaking it in. I'm just soaking it in.
Excited, and then I can't stop talking, and then I'll like in the middle of it, I'll be like, Rachel, you need to wrap it up, and I'm like, yes.
No, that like there's so much beauty in that. Like that right there is what people need to hear. When we talk about the world and the way that it is, that's what people need to hear. That's what people don't have, and that to me is the power of the idea of missions and what we can do as Adventists and people who believe in this idea of go ye therefore. Like to me, what you summarized there is the embodiment of what go ye therefore means. To go and to show that thing that is so awesome for people so that they realize how awesome it is. And like you said, not just in the conceptual and theological side of it, because we do that a lot. We make it a theological point and a proof. And if we can prove it, okay, we know it's true, but it's not always something we get to experience. And
Right.
when we can share that experience of that, that's life-changing. That is life-changing.
Sure. Those
I love
moments,
it.
you can see it kind of click, because as soon as I came to that mindset where it was like, wait, it's not about what I do, it's about what he does, I started telling everyone left and right.
Mm.
I was like, don't be stressed, don't worry. God literally loves you so much. They're like, I know. I'm like, no, you don't. Yeah, I know, it's crazy. They were probably like, she was crazy. I was a little crazy.
Hey, it's got to be done.
True. To see that click is one of the most incredible experiences. To like see them be like, oh, it's not about what I do, or like, oh, I shouldn't put confidence in myself or insecurities in myself, or like, oh, God does love me. Like it's just like, this is why we're alive.
Yes. Out here preaching tonight.
Literally, in the beginning, so you probably can't tell, but I'm actually very nervous. So
No, I
outing myself.
can't.
I mask it well. It's my extrovertism coming out. But I was like praying. I was like, oh no, God, what am I doing? I was like praying. I'm like, God, what am I trying to say? And I was like, God, help. so hopefully I said something good, because I'd like to think it wasn't me. If I said something bad that wasn't me,
You know, and hey,
The
I
best.
can't lie. I get nervous every time I do that. I'm actually an introvert. If I can avoid talking to people, you know, then I do. But
Right.
doing this to me, it's like, oh man, I feel like I get charged up by everything that everyone else has to say. And I get a new perspective on something that I appreciate already so much.
Mm,
And to me, it's just absolutely incredible.
that's awesome.
So
That's so cool. Well, then they found the right guy to do it.
I guess so. I guess so. All right. So when it comes to applying those things to what you're doing right now in life and where you want to take the direction of your life, how have you been able to apply that?
Um, well, I had a lot of conversation about mission work and a lot. And some of them were, super fun. Some of them were really tough, talking about, well, what is the true motivation behind it? Are there flaws within how SDA approaches mission work, and
Mhm.
what can we do to solve it? So I think starting and having those conversations is huge. Um, and I think that can be a way that I have applied it. But I think really, like, the lessons, the takeaways, just kind of applying them, because to have knowledge is great, whatever, but to apply knowledge, that's what it's there for.
Mhm.
And so, it's been 2 years since I've come home. Um, and so trying to apply the things that I have learned, which honestly, like, it doesn't the things that I learned, you don't need to learn on a mission field. You don't need to learn on an island surrounded by cockroaches. You can learn that, anywhere in life. There were so many cockroaches, man. It was crazy. They were
Big
like
ones
this.
too, I bet.
Oh, yeah. Oh, and okay, it's a tangent.
Go for
I
it.
am quite the pacifist. I cannot kill things. The only thing I can kill with no remorse are mosquitoes. That's it. Everything else, even to ants, I can't do it, or I feel so bad. I don't know where this came from. Some people think that it's, oh, so sweet. I'm like, no, if I could kill them, I would. And people are like, that's so weird. Just kill them. And I'm like, I literally can't. And so when it came to cockroaches, I wouldn't kill them. And my roommates were too scared. So they couldn't kill them because they were scared. I wasn't scared. I just couldn't do it. And so I did the cup and paper method. And the paper method I found out was bad because they're so heavy that they'll just
Oh.
paper and crawl out. And I learned the hard way. So you started becoming like folder and cup.
Yeah.
And then it was like a 2-story apartment set. And so I was on the girls were on the second story. So it would kind of be like cup, folder, together, okay, go to the boys' apartment. And then like kind of like, and
Got it.
then every time. So there were not only massive cockroaches, but like I couldn't kill them, so they were always there. I kept forward to get them out. I forgot what we were talking about before that, but I felt impressed upon by the Holy Spirit to talk about cockroaches for me. I just felt like it was like really important. So yeah, go be missionaries, guys.
Oh man. Yo, you got me. You got me.
My roommates use Raid. I feel a little bit bad about that, but I didn't want to breathe in the chemicals of Raid. I feel like we already input so many chemicals into our lives. I was like, I don't need a cockroach killer to be in my nostrils. I didn't say it. I was just like, please, guys, it's cancer. But I do remember I left for 2 weeks on Christmas break. I went to Hawaii.
Mm.
I was so lucky to be able to do that. That was very fun. And they they used Raid while I was gone because I was like, go for it. There were like piles of dead cockroaches on the floor. They're scared of the cockroaches.
Wait a second. Wait. So they sprayed them and just never cleaned them out because they were too scared to touch them.
Hey, bro, crush them into piles.
Come on now.
There were piles of cockroaches. And I was like, this is mission work. Not for the people here, but for the people I live with. Them into the folder, like putting them in the trash. This is service.
Well, that's true. Yo, that's crazy.
I mean, I understand if it were spiders. Same. I don't even know what I would have done. I can't do spiders. Now I can though. Yap has changed me. I'm a changed woman. Because now in my apartment, I get spiders out for my roommate. Of course, cup and paper method. There's no other way that works for me. Yeah, sorry for that tangent. I feel like we were talking about something deep, and I was like, no, cockroaches and spiders. Can you remind me what we were talking about?
I don't know. I was about to say something about spiders too.
Oh, please.
Like I hate spiders. And with me, I'm the opposite. Like if I see it, I have to hunt it down. Because if I know, because I know if I don't see it again, it's gonna turn up somewhere else, probably somewhere else. I'm not gonna want to see it. Actually, I have a scar
No.
in my in my hand because you probably can't see it, but
No.
there was a broom that we would use, and it didn't have a little rubber thing on top. And I lunged to try to get one of these wolf spiders that was jumping around the wall. That thing creeped me out like, I can't.
It was so scary, man.
And so I went back and tried to smash it with the broom, and the metal part dug back into my hand, cut me. So I have a scar. I did get the spider, but I don't know if it was really worth it. That's my spider story.
The story was gonna be that the spider gave you the scar.
No. Trust. If there was a spider big enough to give me a scar,
No.
that'd be some Lord of the Rings nonsense right there. Nah.
The broom method, I never tried to smash them with it because pacifist. I kind of played golf. Kind of like, get out of my classroom. And they're the wolf spiders, right? And then there were like the big spiders, and those were
oh, those things are so creepy.
I had a student who just grabbed it and it threw it on the ground and killed it, and I was like, that was the craziest thing I've ever witnessed in my life. Up and threw it on the ground, and it died. It just
no. Whoa. I can't.
Spider didn't even know it hit him. It was like,
That's crazy. I can't.
Students would try to save me from spiders, and sometimes they would trap me in the classroom with them. It was, what day we were gonna get. It's hard to know. That's my crazy spider story. In the classroom with the spider just to scare me.
That's
funny.
So bad. That's so bad.
Water under the bridge.
Well, you made it back all right, so. Oh man. Yeah, I totally forgot what we were talking about too. Oh, no, I didn't. I got it.
That was fast.
Well, I've been thinking about it for a while I was talking about the spiders. So what you've been able to apply these things into your life right now, which is awesome. And it brings me back to what you'd mentioned about the 3 different ways that you're studying the 3 different things you're studying in school right now. I'm curious, is there anything that you see of those things matching up with your desire to continue with missions moving forward? Is there a way that they all kind of come together in your mind?
Yes.
100%. Okay. Tell us.
Literally 100%. Because what I learned about mission work is that if you have a mindset that you're only going to be a teacher, if you sign up to be a teacher, then you are in for a surprise, because you will not be a teacher. You will also be a pastor, and you will also be a friend and a family member and everything. You will be a maintenance worker, you will be a cleaner, you will be a chef, you will do it all, everything. And I was like, what can I do that is everything? So I'm trying to hit all the things in my education with that. So religion. I want to know as much about God and the Bible. I heard the joke that changed my life that I gotta tell other people about this joke, and now I'm learning about it. Like, oh my gosh, if people just come in at that moment, they're gonna be so confused. I encountered God, and like, it's not a joke, but that was the in case you're just now tuning in.
Right.
Sorry. It's not a joke. That was a metaphor. I want to learn more about God and his people and this journey that they went on from the beginning of time to now. And I want to know how I can tell people about it, how I can express love and knowledge in ways that I can, which I thought that I was going to like preach. I realized that I was not. It's like people aren't just like preach like they are in Yap. It's more people are, and it's kind of a fickle thing. So I found that in conversations, that's the best way that I can talk about God's love, because then you can get intimate and deep with people and talk about, your life and this encounter and the journey that you've had with God, whether it's good or bad. And I empathize with both. I've been on both sides. I've been agnostic before. Some of my closest friends are agnostic, and I'm so grateful that they are, because I'm aggressively spiritual, and so I'm so grateful that they find a safe place in me, because I honestly, as much as I want to share God's love, it is never something that I will ever force the belief upon with someone. I can spread God's love in making food. It doesn't have to be I spread God's love by saying you need to believe what I believe, because
Right.
honestly, at the end of time, we're going to find out how wrong we are about everything and how right we are about some things, and how everyone's going to be a little bit right and how everyone's going to be a little bit wrong, and it's going to be all chaotic and stuff. But the thing is, the intangible part of it, the love part, that part, we're right about that, because that's not exclusive to God. In belief wise, we believe God is in everything, and all things that are love and good come from him, but not everyone has that belief, and that's fine. But the love is something that everyone can share and connect with. That was a tangent, I apologize.
Okay.
But that is why I am a religion major. When I last year, I actually had a very like upset mindset towards religion, because I was discovering that it was actually more like history, but very specific history.
Well,
And I was like, oh, I should have known. But then I started taking more and more classes and stuff, and I fell in love with it all over again. And I love being a religion major. And so that's that facet. So if I ever go into a mission field and someone says, preach, I'm ready. And I can do that after I pray quite a bit. But like, I'm grateful for the knowledge that I have acquired over the time. People can ask me questions about religion and about God, and thankful to my education, I oftentimes do have answers. Oftentimes I also say I don't know, and that's also okay. So I am a graphic design minor. That is important, because honestly, if people are not attracted to something visually within the first 3 seconds, they will disregard it. So if you do not have a good logo, a good website page, an easy to navigate app, stuff like that, you're not going to get anyone to pay attention to you. And that's unfortunately for people who do like ADRA, or maybe not ADRA, I don't want to say ADRA, I don't know ADRA. A lot of people who do nonprofits, they don't always think about the graphic design aspect of it, and how, because they're focused on what's super important, changing people's lives and doing things in that, and mission and all the good stuff, right? They're not thinking this has to be pretty, and that's
right.
right. Try to create designs for them that is aesthetic and pleasing to the eye, and hopefully will capture people's attention. And hopefully websites that work, and I haven't learned that yet, but I will this quarter. And so stuff like that, and user experience and everything like that. And that's important to the mission field, but it's often overlooked because it's not the most important. but
Yeah.
then you get people who are interested in helping with, mission work, and also can do graphic design, then, that can be super helpful in, if you need to fundraise,
Hmm.
uh, or if you need to get attention, stuff like that. Um, and my third one, occupational therapy. This is this is the physical ways that I can help physically. And so occupational therapy is like if someone gets in an accident and they have to relearn how to walk and move again, they will go to a physical therapist. And the physical therapist is going to work with their muscles, which, if anyone's a physical therapist and I'm saying this wrong, I'm so sorry. I think I know what I'm talking about, but feel free to correct later on. But they will help you get to use those muscles again, and kind of heal and move forward and hopefully be active again after that accident or stroke or what have you. Then after that, or with that, occupational therapy comes in, and it's slightly more specific. Instead of getting your hands to open and close again, which I'm sure both work with that, it will be like, I'm going to teach you how to pick up a tack and put it in the cork board. It's
Wow.
like creative ways for you to do specific.
I got you.
No, let's sit in that. Specific
Yeah.
tacks
Yeah.
again.
Yeah.
Which is why they're called occupational therapy again, because they're trying to get you to do your occupation again, not as a career, but your occupation really as doing anything specific again, tying your shoes, putting your hair in a ponytail, putting tacks on a corkboard, things specific. So that's what I will be learning when I do go into my master's into occupational therapy school. Or actually, it'll be a doctorate.
Mm.
That's, but I'm
Oh,
trying to
yeah.
appeal to the mind, the heart, and the body with what I'm learning.
Okay.
And so, yeah, that is, yes, everything that I'm learning is catered to mission work because I want to be the most useful.
Yo, that's awesome.
And
That
so,
that's really impressive too, to be honest. Like, yeah, that's big time. That's big time right there.
thank you. I hope that it didn't come across like I'm trying to talk myself up, but
No, 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 no. I was curious because I mean, from the outset, it doesn't look like those three things are related at all. But when
no,
you're able to explain it, it's like
it,
again, it makes sense. But it only something like that would only make sense to someone who has the kind of vision to put it in a certain place like that. L- Here's let's see if I can say this right.
okay.
To have the kind of vision to put all of these things into something beyond just an occupational therapist, just a pastor, or just a graphic designer, those things are things that too many people are going to school for. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot
Yeah,
of people in the seminary with me who are there to be a pastor.
right.
There's a lot of people in the whatever the health, they have a master's program up here. They're there just to be a PT or whatever.
Hmm.
But to be able to realize that that's like what, in my mind, Christian education is supposed to be. Not that we're taking these degrees to be that, but we're taking these things to be useful to reach others for God.
Right, right.
So again, it's almost a wild concept because I've never heard of anyone who's done things from like such a wide spectrum, but it makes sense. It just makes sense.
And
So
if you get to know me better, it'll make more sense because it's like um I get very into something for a bit and then I kind of get into something for a bit and then and it tends to be those three things. Either it's I get very very because I mean life goes in seasons and cycles and you have ups and downs and there's things you're passionate about and that passion fades and but it comes back. And so that's I'm like that on steroids. Like I get very into something and then it's like fun, and then I get into something else. And it's been those three things. It's been God, which when I say like I get into it and I don't mean that like there's times where I put God in my pocket and I'm like, okay, what else is there? It's more like there are times where I'm on fire in the relationship and then there's times where I am content just experiencing it,
mhm.
not being the one to always talk about it or bring it up or learn about it, but sometimes God just wants us to just be still. Still. And there are moments where I fall short, like, don't put effort in the relationship and am stagnant, and that's also, a season. So, but the fire will be relit always, somehow, some way. And so that's a big part of my life. And art is another huge part of my life, but it's also something that I can get very bored with. I don't want to paint every single day for the rest of my life. I think I'd lose my mind. It's something that, and if I feel it in the moment, I do it. And same with design, and same with writing and poetry and all of that. It's something I get really passionate about, and then sometimes, the fire dwindles. Yeah, I think dwindles is the right word.
Yeah.
Then being active. I love being active and outdoors and doing things, and that is something I'm passionate about. But if that's all I did, I would lose my mind. So I cycle through these three things. And so if you know who I am, you'll know that, oh, she's doing all three of those. Glad she found them.
Oh, that's what's up. That's what's up. So we're getting down here to the last couple questions, last couple things to pick your mind on. And one of them is, what would you tell someone if you were to encourage them to go and serve?
The first thing that comes in mind is to say, like, do it. Part of me just wants to leave that there, just in and of itself.
You can. That's fair.
I think I will. Yeah. Do it. It's not for everyone to leave your home to do it. So do it here. If you are dying to go somewhere new, do it. Go there. It doesn't even have to be through a missions program. You can be a missionary wherever you go, no matter what you do. Mm-hmm. It's spreading God's love. Just do it.
I like that. Simple, to the point. Oh man, I just did it. I was gonna say something. I forgot. Hold on. Yes, you were talking about missions as something you can do anywhere, right? Mm-hmm. But you also mentioned missions as something that's often romanticized. Mm-hmm. It seems to me like missions, in terms of what people can do here, people are not always looking at missions as something they can do here because of how romanticized it is.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think it's up to people like us and other people who have gone on those serving experiences to remind people that it's not something you go to do, but it's more of like who you are. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I like that a lot. And I completely agree. I mean, when you hear missionary, you're going to think overseas. Like it's an automatic assumption to believe that a missionary is someone who leaves. And sometimes that's the case. And kudos to those people who can uproot their lives for that reason, to spread God's love. Like, incredible. Mm-hmm. I think that if we kind of maybe perhaps even reframed our reaction to the word mission or missionary, to think that it is a way of life, like you said, more so than this thing you have to do and go and be. I think that would be revolutionary. And I think, yeah, no, that is what I think. I was going to try to see if I can keep going, but then
it happens. It's all good.
That's what you said a lot, that it's kind of like, I don't know, a state of being, not where you have to go. Makes a big difference when your mindset is more so that way.
Yeah. All right, last thing. All right, so last thing, is there any last thing that you would like to share with the listeners?
my gosh, do you think there still are? I've been talking for so long.
Hey, I don't even know. Well,
Yeah,
we out
don't
of
talk.
here though.
I don't want to know. Yes, I do. A lot of times when you hear about their story of how someone became a missionary, oftentimes there's this word that people use all the time. I just said often and then all the time. They say the word called, and they say that they were called to be a missionary. I just want to say that, mwah, beautiful, so happy for you. Not everyone feels called. Not everyone hears a voice in their head that says go overseas. Not everyone has this divine moment. Not everyone in 8th grade was sitting down at Wawona and heard a pastor and then suddenly want to be a missionary for the rest of their life. That happens to some people. It doesn't happen to everyone, but that doesn't mean you can't do it. You don't have to wait to feel like you need to do it. Like, you don't have to wait until there's a voice saying, go to Nashville, go to Nashville. Like, that's not always how it works. For some people, that is. And especially, those people who are very emotional or tuned in with the Holy Spirit, that, that's how their stories are going to sound. And kudos to them. Incredible, beautiful stories. But it doesn't have to be yours. And that's okay. If you want to do it, then perhaps that is enough. Or if you don't want to do it, but you're curious about it, that's enough too. Or even if you're like logically it makes sense for me to do it, that's enough. Just go do it. You don't have to feel like a pull. People will say this, like, I felt a tug on my heart, or like, not to make fun of it, it's beautiful. Or people will say, like, I heard a voice in my head, and again, beautiful, great, I'm so happy that happened for you, but like, that doesn't happen like that for everybody, and that's okay. I think that's something I'd want to leave.
I like that. And this to me has been very insightful. I feel like I've learned a lot. I feel like we definitely need to become better friends, because I've been missing out for the past few years.
I'm so looking forward to this. I feel the friendship blossoming already.
That's what I'm talking about. And low key, you also got me wondering if I might be a little bit ADHD myself, because that thing you said about seasons and passions, that you got me thinking on that. I do that all the time.
Yeah. A lot of undiagnosed ADHD.
I might be one of them. It wouldn't have surprised me either. That's a story for another time, but
talk later.
yeah. And hey, I just got to say thank you. This has been awesome. And I am sure that people will be blessed as a result of listening to your experience. And that's just up to this point. There's more to come, because your story is still being written. So, we out here for it too. That's what it's all about. So definitely thank you for taking the time to hang out with me here on the podcast. Really appreciate it.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for having me. This was so much fun.
Oh, yeah. And I want to thank all of you guys who are listening. Reminder that this is another episode of Go the Mission. Doesn't matter what platform you're tuning in on, like, subscribe, and share it so we can continue to get the mission out there. If you have any questions about missions, or you're wondering how to be a missionary or a teacher or a service person, let me know. You can reach me by email using gothemission@gmail.com, or drop a comment on or message through social media or YouTube. And finally, remember, to exist, it's not enough. We out here to be out here. Until next time, peace.